Hello and welcome to Solidari-Tea, the Resource Center's podcast at UCSC. The purpose of Solidari-Tea is to uplift the voices and actions of students who work at the Resource Centers or with student organizations. I'm Githika, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an intern with the ERC who will be hosting today's episode. Please note that the opinions and views expressed in the episodes are of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the UCSC Resource Centers. Today's episode is titled Mauna Kea Protectors. I'm joined by Izzy Layne. Izzy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Iz, my pronouns are they, them, and she, and I am a member of the Mauna Kea Protectors at UCSC, and I'm really excited and happy that Githika invited me to speak and share this information with you all today.
Of course, I'm so excited as well. How about we start with some definitions of some words in the native Hawaiian language? So to start with, Olelo is the name of the language.
Yes.
Okay. Kānaka Maoli means native Hawaiian.
Yeah, Kānaka Maoli is Native Hawaiian people.
Mm-hmm. Kiai is guardian or protector.
Yeah, and so as Mauna Kea Protectors, we are Kiai, and we listen to Kānaka Maoli Kiai. We work with Kānaka Maoli Kiai.
So basically anyone who's a part of the movement is Kiai. And then Kapuna means elder or ancestor.
Yeah, and the Kapuna lead this movement. The Protecting Mauna Kea movement is based in Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian culture, and so they listen to their elders. Their elders are the Kapuna are in charge of the movement, basically.
Okay, that's super interesting to learn. So when did your club start and what do you guys do, for anyone who doesn't know?
Mauna Kea Protectors began in 2014, 2015 at UCSC, because that is when the UC and other universities began the planning / construction of the 30-meter telescope. And the 30-meter telescope is the biggest, is the reason why us as UC students are involved with protecting Mauna Kea. Is the 30-meter telescope is this humongous telescope that the UC, along with other universities around the world, like the University of Hawaii, universities in India, China, Japan, and Canada, are all together created the 30-meter telescope, LLC, to build it on top of Mauna Kea. And Mauna Kea is the biggest mountain in the world. And so and I know when we hear that, we're like, no, I thought Mount Everest was the biggest mountain in the world. Mm-hmm. I thought so too, but that's false. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world from the land to the sky. Mauna Kea rises from the bottom of the ocean. So from the sea floor, it rises past into the sky. And so it is the tallest mountain in the world from the seafloor to the sky. And that's incredibly important when we're talking about Mauna Kea, because it is the pico, which means the life force, the birthplace of Hawaii as a nation, as an island, and as a people. So for its cultural, spiritual, and honestly just environmental, geological importance, as the tallest mountain in the world, Mauna Kea is being threatened by the construction of the 30-meter telescope on the top of Mauna Kea. And so as soon as the UC, along with all these other universities, began this project, Kānaka Maoli people rose up and said, no, we're not gonna allow for colonizers to continue to desecrate our mountain. And so they reached out to, this is very important because the movement is truly led by Kānaka Maoli people, especially Kapuna, because they reached out to us to ask for our help, because they know that the only way to stop a project like this, which has literally billions of dollars of funding behind it, is to get mass support. And they know students are that's a humongous support base. And so if students can pressure their universities to divest from the 30-meter telescope, which is also referred to as TMT, then that would incredibly help their movement in protecting the mountain. And so in 2014, when the project was launched and planning began, they reached out to all UC students and asked for our help. And so that's when we began as Mauna Kea Protectors in the UC. We've been here since, and I feel like it's crazy because now we're in 2023. That's like almost a decade of them trying to build this telescope. So, yeah, sorry, that's a lot of info, but.
No, thank you for that. That was amazing. I just wanted to touch on some points you mentioned. So you said Mauna Kea is like the birthplace of Hawaii. So I remember when we talked earlier, Hawaii's an island nation, right? It formed from volcanic eruptions in the ocean. So I think you told me earlier, Mauna Kea was the first and largest volcanic explosion.
It is the volcano itself. It like rose from the ocean floor. And it spewed a bunch of lava and molten, and that melted.
That became the land that is now Hawaii.
Exactly.
So it quite literally created Hawaii.
Literally.
Yeah, if someone wanted to understand the cultural significance of Mauna Kea, it created the home for Native Hawaiians.
Yes. Yes.
Very culturally important.
Incredibly. And environmentally, geologically, like in every way, it is pivotal.
Yeah. You also mentioned that the mountain was first threatened in 2014, and I just wanted to highlight in 2015 there was mass mobilization in Hawaii, where a lot of elders were actually arrested by the law enforcement there because they were like making a human barricade basically to stop the construction trucks from driving up the mountain, and they everyone would just sit down and the elders would put themselves as the first line of defense.
Because they lead the movement. And that's incredibly important, because this movement isn't about I think this is very beautiful about the movement, that it's not rooted in hate, at all. It's not rooted in anger. It's not rooted in frustration. It is rooted in love, and it is rooted in aloha aina, love of the land, and protecting the land because of love. And so, as we said, 2014 is when the project began, and it's very important to say that from the very, very beginning, Kānaka Maoli people did not want it. And obviously at public comments and stuff, they were ignored, and obviously their emails and their calls were ignored. And so they had to do direct action. They, for a year, said no, no, no. They, obviously, colonizers don't care. And by colonizers, I mean specifically the University of Hawaii, alongside and with the support of the University of California and all these other universities I mentioned earlier. They said quite overtly no. They were not listened to at all and ignored. And so when construction began in 2015, they blocked the road. And it wasn't, it's they literally were just chilling. It's
but there were a lot of people.
Yes, there was a lot of
support.
Thousands of people showed up in support and in solidarity with Kānaka Maoli, Kiai, to say no. And so they just set up camp basically at the access road to Mauna Kea, with tents and chairs, and they were holding ceremonies and dancing and music. And then, of course, because private property, well, quote unquote, private property was being harmed, and because they were blocking access for construction, the University of Hawaii got the police to come and forcibly remove numerous Kānaka Maoli kapuna, specifically, aka elders, from the road. And it is very tragic. I think it was about 47, 50 kapuna were arrested that day. It's very tragic. You can see them. A lot of the kapuna literally couldn't even walk. There was a lot of them in wheelchairs. And so there's disgusting pictures online of police zip tying their hands together and then carrying them and their wheelchairs away and into police cars. And also, I think that's important to keep in, like, that's important when we're talking about specifically the 2015 barricade and blockade, is Kupuna are supposed to be the front line because they're leading up the movement. And I've heard from numerous Kānaka Maoli how painful it was to, like, witness that, because that's their elders. Those are their, like, the main guardians of the mountain. Like, women in Kupuna are the main guardians of the Mauna. And so to have them be harmed in the process of protecting was very emotional for a lot of Kānaka Maoli to experience. And yeah, it just goes to show, I think, quite literally, that the project does not care about these people. And I think that's really important to ram in, because their voices are being purposely not listened to. And so us as people who are not Kānaka Maoli have to make a fuss about it on their behalf in the mainland, because it is the mainland's money and support and troops that are going and harming them. Yeah. And also, another really important thing about this movement is that it's based in nonviolence. And so even when Kānaka Maoli and Kupuna and Kiai are faced with state violence, they do not act in violence back. And that's why, even as they saw their elders and parents being taken away by the police, everyone else had to sit and, like, watch and just bear witness to what was happening instead of interfering, because they know that if you try and interfere, especially as an Indigenous person, you are going to be vilified. You're going to be antagonized, and your movement is going to be delegitimized. And so it's very important for the movement to be based in love and in direct action that is protecting the mountain. And that's why these blockades have not happened. It happened in 2015, but also happened in 2019, because they tried again, and they just really, it's the TMT LLC truly refuses to listen to Kānaka Maoli people. And so they've been forced to block the mountain numerous times. And of course, these people have jobs and lives and homes and children to take care of. And they have to spend days, weeks, depending on the blockade. Like in the 2019, they were there for like weeks, of their life to protect this mountain that that the state should just listen and not try to desecrate by building more. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was just really important to understand like that mass mobilization event, to understand like how long ago this fight started.
Yes.
And how intensely the Native Hawaiians are fighting.
Yes.
We're also going to link a documentary where they show this event, because I think it's powerful to see it for yourself.
Yeah, I think it is very powerful and important to look at like the images and the videos. There's numerous online about the movement, because it is modern day colonization. It's happening right now, and I feel like plenty of people say colonization is bad, but then when it's happening, no one actually stands by Indigenous people. And I think that is a American cultural thing that is incredibly harmful for Indigenous people, and that needs to stop. And especially because it's for profit. If you're wondering like why doesn't the University of Hawaii and the UC and the government just listen to them? Because they don't give a fuck about them or what they say. And also because all these universities are coming together. They're combining their funds together to build the 30-meter telescope, because if they do so, they will be able to rent it out to other universities and researchers around the world and make a bunch of money. And that is the main reason why, even though they know that it's going to harm the environment, it's going to harm Kānaka Maoli people, they don't care, because the profit incentive is incredibly large. And also, I think so, if we're talking in the day and age that we are in currently of climate catastrophe and climate change, I think it's incredibly important to stop putting profit over people and over land. And I think we definitely know better. And the University of California loves to act like it would never do that. But obviously it is a colonizing institution. And so it's a capitalist colonizer institution. So it literally, like, as an institution, cannot help but disregard Native people's concerns as soon as it comes to profit. But if it's for their image, they love to be like, oh, we love Indigenous people. But as soon as profit gets in the way.
And I think you touched on this, but who exactly is in control of the construction of this telescope?
It is a lot of people, but the University of California has a bigger role, honestly, than like other universities. The University of California kind of created the LLC, the TMT, 30-meter telescope LLC, which is like a corporation. And like they created LLC so that like their names are not like on the project. You have to look like who's behind the corporation to find out where the funding is coming from. And so the University of California and the University of Hawaii specifically work together to bring in all these other universities around the world for funding, because together that's how they could actually create this project. Another incredibly important aspect of this entire movement is that the reason, so initially this is quite sad, but Mauna Kea already has 13 telescopes on it. Yeah. It already has been desecrated. It has already been colonized. Obviously, Hawaii was illegally annexed, and their democracy was couped and overthrown, and many people were murdered. And since then, Mauna Kea has been, quote unquote, owned and, oh my God, I hate when they use this word, stewarded. They literally like to say that, by the Department of like Land and Water and the University of Hawaii, basically the government. And that's what it's covers for the government. So the United States government has ownership, quote unquote, of Mauna Kea. And so the University of Hawaii and the government have allowed 13 telescopes to be built on Mauna Kea already. And obviously that has incredibly harmed the mountain. There has been chemical spills, there has been sewer spills, there has been they've built roads obviously all on the mountain so that all these people can get to the telescopes. It's been massive litter. It has led to a humongous decline in the Mauna Kea wildlife. And there's a lot of endemic species on Mauna Kea. Endemic means species that only live on Mauna Kea. Nowhere else in the world do they live. And they have been harmed, moved, murdered because of the construction already. And so a lot of harm has already been done. And I think that's also important. A lot of harm has already been done to this mountain and to Kānaka Maoli people for generations, for decades. And they were never, ever given any say into the construction. And even when they were opposed to it, they were, of course, not listened to. But I think that's why I really love this quote I heard from like a Kānaka Maoli protector. And she said, they wanted to build a telescope, but instead they awoke a nation. And I think that's really important to understand when we're talking about TMT. And the reason why it created such a mass mobilization and mass movement and like cultural awakening for Native Hawaiian people was because this telescope, unlike the others, is it's called an ELT, which stands for extremely large telescope.
The biggest one.
Like it's yeah, and that is the reason why there's been such a humongous cry and rallying cry to stop this construction, because it would literally be ginormous.
Yeah, should we talk about the scale of it? Because it's like 18 stories tall.
Yes.
It's many acres wide.
It's like a football field. Like the width, like the land, like just like the landmass it will hold a football field. And another really important thing when we're talking about TMT, and it's literally breaking Hawaii's own law, because in Hawaii, like similar to Santa Cruz, you can't build above the tree line for aesthetic purposes. And so you can't build more like 4 stories, basically. No, 8 stories. You can't build more than 8 stories in Hawaii. TMT is 18. And so it would be literally the tallest building in all of Hawaii, which is obviously whack and so disrespectful. Obviously, I know that the government does not give a fuck about being respectful, but it is incredibly disrespectful to allow the building of the literal largest building in all of Hawaii on the most sacred mountain in all of Hawaii. So yeah, it's quite disgusting. And so that's why Kānaka Maoli people rose up and said, no way, because this would be the largest telescope. It would have the most funding. So it would have the most like state of the art, like technology. And that would bring in a lot more people to the mountain. And so it would further desecrate the mountain. Like people that already go there already pollute it plenty, already are desecrating it. But with this construction, it would bring in hundreds of more people to continue that legacy. That is why Native Hawaiian people really rose up together to say no. And they've been saying no for almost a decade now. And I think it is about time that the University of California stops its funding from this project. I have this fact, and it says between 2014 and 2017, and this is old information, and the UC has definitely provided more money since then, but the UC provided $38.11 million to this project. That's a lot of money, and nothing has been built yet. Millions of dollars have been poured into this project just for planning, just for like terrorizing Kānaka Maoli people, like police, like that costs money to deploy people. But nothing's been built. So they're literally throwing money at hypotheticals and instead of at literally anything else. And so I also think that even if you, for some reason, like don't give a fuck about like Native people and Indigenous sovereignty, which I think you obviously should, but if you don't for some reason, you should care that this money, millions upon millions of dollars, are being utilized to desecrate land instead of being used to like have better housing or to make college not literally impossible for anyone to afford or to pay your workers a living wage. Like they are throwing money at everything but the students and the faculty, which is just incredibly disrespectful. Like unless we force it to treat us better, it will not. And so I think that's also really important. Like we have, as university students and as university staff and faculty, we have a lot to gain from divesting from the 30-meter telescope. All that money can come back to us. Like that is incredibly important, I feel like, for us as students at UCSC to understand.
Yeah, thank you. You've mentioned the term divest a couple times. Would you like to talk about what that means?
Yeah. Divest basically means like to take away funding, because the UC has provided a lot of funding and support, like public support for the project. And that has enabled it to continue. This project cannot continue without the public support it has created and without all the funding that it has at its disposal. It will never get built if the UC takes away its funding. And so that's why as university students, I think it's really important for us to be involved with this movement, because if we can cause the university's reputation to become so bad that they are forced to divest, TMT will not be built. And that is so doable. And that is so exciting. And I think it's really important to root in that. And this is actually something I would like, we can root more into this, is that Kānaka Maoli people, they're never gonna let it be built. They've said that numerous times. We are not letting you build it. And so are we just gonna force them to continue fighting for another decade? Or are we gonna help them and just make it a lot easier for their fight to finally to win? because they're not going to back down. So I think it's very important to root in the fact that this is, as universities, since we have a lot of power in this movement, and it is untouched power right now. It is not massive. It is not mobilized. But we totally have the potential for that. And we can make a humongous change and help a lot of people and help the land and literally our planet, because we are living in an incredibly precarious time regarding the environment. So any environmental desecration should be closely looked at and critically understood.
I guess maybe we could touch on this so that people could have more hope, maybe for the fight. Like, is it realistic to stop this construction?
We talked about the 2015 blockade, but for UCSC specifically, there was another blockade in 2019. They tried to build it again, and so Kānaka Maoli people, Kiai and Kapuna, once again had to leave their lives and to protect their mountain. And it was a humongous blockade. It lasted for weeks. A bunch of elders were also arrested again. Kiai were arrested. They held ceremony for days and, to protect the mountain. And I think that's also important. Like they anytime that they try to actually physically build it, they will be met with a blockade, direct action, direct force, direct protection of the mountain. And so the last blockade happened in 2019, and when that happened, the Mauna Kea Protectors in the UC really rose up in solidarity. And I think that was like in 2019, from what I've heard from Mauna Kea Protectors who are still here from 2019, that was like the most mobilized that UC students had been at that point. There was massive mobilizations in solidarity with the Kānaka Maoli Protectors at the base of the Mauna. And some Mauna Kea Protectors from the UC were even invited to the Mauna to help protect. And so that was like a humongous height in the movement of like awareness and education and mobilization. And we can get there again. It's also obviously COVID immediately killed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
And that has enabled the university to quietly, behind closed doors, get more funding, make more deals, try to make it seem like it won't be harmful to the environment or to Native Hawaiian people, even though it just is. The university, unless we force them to divest, the TMT will try to build again. And once again, people will put their bodies on the line. And I don't think that none of us want to see a protector literally being killed by the police. Like, that is completely plausible. And that should never happen. But if we are unable to stop this project, then that can happen. And there's no need for any more state violence against Kānaka Maoli people and against the Mauna. They have both endured enough and are tired of this mistreatment and are tired of being ignored. So they refuse to be ignored and refuse to be desecrated. And I think that's really important, is that it just isn't gonna happen. It's just not gonna be built. I think it's very interesting that the university has, and the entire project has just ignored the fact that Kānaka Maoli people have repetitively said no. And have repeatedly said never. And I feel like that just really ties into the United States history of colonization and genocide of indigenous people. I think it's also important to say that this is cultural genocide. Like, genocide is, like, the definition of genocide is like displacement of, like, either quite literally just their mass murder or also their ethnic cultural murder and displacement. And Kānaka Maoli people have already been displaced from the Mauna. The continued desecration of this mountain is cultural genocide, and it should be said like that so that we can deal with this issue with the seriousness that it deserves. This isn't some petty fight over a mountain. This is an incredibly culturally significant, ecologically significant, spiritually significant mountain. Literally life giver, the Mauna, like the mother. And we need to have that awareness in order to properly move against a system that loves to put profit over people and over the environment and over other people's cultures. I think it's very interesting that, like, if we're even thinking about, like, within colonial law, aka the United States law, you are not allowed to infringe on anyone's religious practices. This is a direct violation of that. The Mauna has been, for millennia, the place where Kānaka Maoli people do ceremony and where their ancestors are buried. This is very important as well, like, kind of getting into the cultural and historical significance of Mauna Kea is that in Native Hawaiian, like, traditions and culture, this mountain has been reserved for ceremonies, has been reserved for for chiefs specifically to receive guidance from Creator. And there's, like, numerous shrines on the Mauna, and there's also numerous burial sites. And so every time that people go and desecrate and pollute and spill chemicals and build on this mountain, they are building over the bones of ancestors. They are building over shrines that have been there for thousands and thousands of years. And they are building on a mountain that was literally considered so sacred that no one else but the highest chiefs were allowed to go to the top. And now construction crews are trying to go to the top. This is very rooted in colonialism, and the Mauna Kea Protector movement is incredibly rooted in the same movements that we have seen, like in Standing Rock and in Eurostock and Line 3 and Willow Project and Cop City. All of these colonial profit-driven projects are coming at the cost of Native people's autonomy, dignity, and their ancestors. It's in a direct violation of all their ancestors who are buried and who have fought to protect this soil and who have died trying to protect their land. And we're seeing right now Native people around Turtle Island are still desperately trying to protect their land, and the same government forces that like to be like, oh, that was so bad. What we did was so bad. Yeah. #sorry. Yeah. Don't actually care and are continually trying to do this violence onto them again. This is our time. This is the time to do something. Like, this truly is the time. We have the power to help. We have the power to stop this construction, and we just need to mobilize it and actualize it.
I like that you mentioned other projects. I don't even want to call them projects, but things that are threatening indigenous land right now, because Mauna Kea Protectors, like, your guys' like main like driving mission, it goes beyond Mauna Kea. It's like for indigenous sovereignty in general, right?
Yes.
That is being threatened in many other ways, like most recently probably by the Willow Project, but also a lot of other projects. And yeah, it's like the Kānaka Maoli are fighting colonialism. They're fighting modern day colonialism right now.
We can't expect the UC to just one day be like, you know what? I'm gonna stop. That will never happen. That will literally never happen. And so that's why I think it's really important for us to understand what the UC cares about is their reputation. If like mass student mobilization puts so much pressure on the chancellor and on the regents to divest from this project, and there's so much press happening about it because of the mass mobilizations, because of the comments that are being made, they will back out. If we can create a reputation that the UC is an active colonizer, is harming indigenous people right now, and is wasting money to do that, that could go anywhere else, they will divest. Of course, it is not only us in this battle. I think that's also important to say. Students in Japan, students in Canada, students in India, they have all also been fighting alongside Mauna Kea Protectors and have forced their universities and their governments to divest and also to propose different construction sites for the project. It just does not, it is not going to happen on Mauna Kea. And as soon as they understand that, the better. Build somewhere else, fam. Simple. Build somewhere else.
Yeah, I think India was actually looking towards the Canary Islands to change the construction site. That happened in January of 2020. In March of 2020, Japan suspended funding for the project. In May 2021, the Canadian Astronomical Association claimed that, and this is a quote, unless the TMT project has consent from the Native Hawaiians, Canada's astronomical community cannot support its construction on Mauna Kea. So,
and it never will get consent. So that just means basically no.
Yeah. So it seems like these other countries
have been doing the work.
Yeah, and they understand the importance of Mauna Kea and why it's such a sacred site.
Yes. Yeah. And one thing I also haven't touched on that is really beautiful about the movement, that I really love about the movement, is that Mauna Kea Protectors have visited all the UC campuses and have rallied student support for years. But they haven't only been talking to students, they've been talking to faculty, but most importantly, they've been talking to other Indigenous people.
I wanted to touch on this. You told me they were talking to the Amha Mutsun. Yeah.
Yeah, when they, everywhere they go, they understand that their struggle is not isolated. This is a transnational, international struggle for autonomy from colonial institutions. And so they connect their movement for autonomy with other movements for Indigenous autonomy and sovereignty. And so for our UCSC specifically, they have been working with the Amamutsun tribal band since like 2014. And they've been in communication with them. They have been supporting each other in their movements. And that has been really pronounced this past year with protecting Eurostock. Kānaka Maoli people have offered a lot of support, a lot of outreach, and also a lot of help in fighting that desecration that is currently happening here. And in return, the Amamutsun have also used their platform and their power to support Native Hawaiians in protecting Mauna Kea. And they've done that at every single UC. So UC Davis, they have talked with the Native people there, same with UCLA. And I think that's really beautiful because they're creating a cross-cultural, fighting, bringing people from numerous movements together. And because they want the support, they need the support. When you're fighting a colonial project that has a profit incentive, the only way you can win is if you have massive support behind you. As we've seen, the United States does not like to do anything good unless it's forced to. Literally, it has to be forced to do something that's right. Yeah. You can never expect it to do it itself. We have to force our government to act in a way that we can be proud of. And that's why I think it's really important for us, even if we're young, even though we're students and we're busy. And I also want to highlight that we are busy. As students, we are overworked, we are underpaid. As student workers, we have a lot on our plate. And so I also understand that I feel like for a lot of students, hearing this can be really overwhelming. Because it is overwhelming. I totally understand. It's really painful. It's really hard to come to terms with this reality that we are in. We are living in such an awful time. I mean, every time is crazy, but in this time of mass medialization and mass commercialization and just climate change on the humongous massive scale, and government state violence all the time, we are stressed. And I think that's also why important, instead of letting this energy, this sadness, this anger, this sorrow, this loss that we all feel and carry with us every day, instead of letting it create apathy and create a lack of belief in better, instead of creating nihilism, we can't allow ourselves to fall into that emotional trap, because all it does, it doesn't help us. It doesn't help ourselves as an individual, and it doesn't help us collectively. utilize and redirect and reframe that sorrow and that anger, because we're angry. Yeah. I'm angry. I don't know. I'm very angry. I think it is awful that people have been severely harmed in this process and in this project. Yeah, as Githika said, they said that they're gonna include a documentary, probably Standing Above the Clouds. And it talks to a lot of Kānaka Maoli, Kiai, and their personal stories with the Mauna, because this movement has really transformed a lot of people's lives for the better. It has brought communities together, communities that have been forcefully and violently torn apart from each other in the process of colonization, has brought them together again. And so I love this movement because it's so rooted in love. It is truly about, we deserve better. Our Mauna deserves better. And we are going to ensure that. And not through any violence. Because there has been enough violence. And Kānaka Maoli people have faced enough violence. So this movement really is rooted in love and protection. And that's why I think it is such a hopeful place to be in also. Despite the fact that the Mauna Kea Protectors in the UC system have, ever since 2014, gone to every single Board of Regents meeting. Every single one. There has, and also, I think a good question is who has the power? Who has the power in this situation? So UC specific, who has control of our funding and who is behind this project and support, especially public support. The funding is controlled by the regents and by the UC president, Michael Drake. But the public support, especially in the astrophysics and astronomical community and science community, has been directed, and this is why UCSC students, we are pivotal. We are truly pivotal in this, and we can take advantage of this. We should see that we are pivotal in this project as a hopeful thing, because that gives us so much power in this situation.
Speaking on that, maybe for someone who might be confused about the movement, are the protectors of Mauna Kea against the development of science?
Thank you for that question, because that has been a narrative that the University of Hawaii and the TMT LLC have used against Kānaka Maoli protectors. Is your protection is coming at the detriment to science. Basically gaslighting Kānaka Maoli people, truly just manipulating, which are not surprising at all. But no, that is not at all the case. Kānaka Maoli people cannot care less, honestly, about these accusations, because they're so just overtly false. They simply do not want it built on their mountain. And also that narrative that Kānaka Maoli people are against science is super racist. It really is. That's super duper racist. Native Hawaiian people literally have been one of the best navigators by stars in human history. They literally were one of the first people to ever create boats and sail across the Pacific entirely. And they did that by using the stars as navigation. Astronomy specifically. The 30-meter telescope isn't for astronomy, it's for astrophysics. It's to see the universe better. Native Hawaiian people literally have utilized the stars to navigate the Pacific before anyone else on Earth ever thought about doing that. They have been utilizing the stars and respecting the stars and witnessing the stars scientifically for thousands upon thousands of years. And so to say that they're against science is so disrespectful and delegitimizes thousands of years of knowledge that has led to this current colonial project. Native knowledge is science, and it needs to be respected as that. And that is why our Earth is literally dying. It's because Western colonizers don't listen to Native science. We have seen so much crazy shit happen in our lifetime in such a short amount of time. And it's because of climate change. And we should really be a lot more invested in protecting the land that has not been built on, because that is what's going to save our lives. Like, that is going to literally save us and our family and people around the world, by protecting the land. Every time that that an institution forces profit over people and over the environment, that directly leads to like another flood. It directly leads to another wildfire. It directly leads to another earthquake and a hurricane and a tsunami that will kill thousands of people and already has killed millions of people. They're like, climate refugees are already a thing. Millions of people have already been murdered by climate change. We don't need more. And we need, as citizens, and especially as US citizens, we need to act more aggressively towards our government for literally causing, and corporations, for literally causing this climate murder. Not even to get into all the animals that have been murdered. You know what I mean? Like, we don't, like, if we're just talking about people, like, I'm talking about all the plants and animals.
Species that have gone extinct.
Exactly. And on Mauna Kea, literally endemic. Like, they are at risk of extinction if development continues. Yeah. These species are not extinct yet, but do we want to see more species go down this rabbit hole? Yeah. Hawaii is already the extinction capital of the world. Hawaii already has the biggest loss of biodiversity around the world because it has been so overdeveloped. Americans love to go to Hawaii for their vacations and whatever, but it comes at the expense of Native Hawaiian people and of the biodiversity of the land.
So if students are interested in protecting Indigenous land, what can they do for the Mauna Kea movement?
I think mostly, like, if you wanna, I think it's first important to get like educated on the movement. So already, if you're listening to this, kind of boom first thing. And if you want to get more involved with like the organizing and like mobilizations and education, or if you want to get more educated and like, you know, come to an event, UCSC Mauna Kea Protectors, we would love more members. We need a movement that's intergenerational, that crosses like numerous different fields. I think it's one thing that I really like about the Mauna Kea Protectors on our campus is that we have a lot of astrophysics students.
That's cool.
Because they are very aware that like science does not have to come at the cost of harming Indigenous people. It does not. And so creating this false dichotomy that it has to is harmful to all these students who have dreams of like seeing the stars. You know, like, you're telling me that I have to hurt people in order to see stars? No, you don't have to. Yeah. And so we need to stop, like, we need to smack and smash down that narrative that says so that we can have a scientific community that is not imperialist. Scientific imperialism does not have to be that, like, science does not have to be harmful. And it has been, and it doesn't have to be. There's a lot that we can gain as UC students from this movement. It can give us back our power, because a lot of it never has been given to us. We must take it. We must demand that students actually have a say in funding, in housing, in projects that the UC connects itself to. The UC is involved with a lot of truly horrific practices and institutions and corporations. The UC loves to hide behind different LLCs and direct funding towards it when it literally could be going to students, and it just doesn't. And so I think that we have a lot to gain from this movement too, which I also think is why it's like there's so much potential in this movement. Because one, it's gonna win, the movement's gonna win, period, honestly. But the sooner the better, truly, so that more money is not wasted, more people are not harmed. This is a generational trauma that is currently being inflicted on Kānaka Maoli people. So this is a great movement, I think, for people to get involved with if you want to ground in community, a loving community, if you want to ground in the hope and optimism that our world can be better and is going to be better because we will create it. And I think this movement is a great place for us to gain power and to gain like strength in ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing so much about your club and the movement in general. And I really appreciate your optimism and, like, I don't know, how important the fight is to you personally, and, like, what you said about how it brings you back power is so important. Like, that's beautiful to hear.
I feel like we all experience that. Like,
Yeah, we all experience the overwhelming
lack of power worldwide.
Yeah.
Like, citizens need to take our power back. We must. It is stressful, but like I feel like this is so stupid. But like this is just so silly. But like the whole the trendy I wish I was alive in the 70s and 60s. Like when like all these movements are happening. Babe, we can create the movement now. Yeah. And I think that's also important. Like the movement is now. If there was ever a time to save the world, bitch, it's now. Yeah. So if you want to do that, do it. I want to be there with you. Like I want us all together really, really badly. Because that's the only way we will win is together. Which also is a beautiful challenge.
Yeah, it truly is. And it emphasizes community, and it's great. Yeah, thank you for highlighting all of these points. Is there anything you want to shout out about maybe what your club is doing next?
Thank you, Githika. Right now, UCSC Mauna Kea Protectors, we have petition. I know. Petitions will not do anything on their own. And that is not what we believe as an organization either. But we do have to have a tangible representation of student support for Indigenous sovereignty and their demands for divestment. And so an important way to kind of get a tangible like number on that is to have like petitions. Because then you can see how many students, which students, that students do care. Because truly we have to create the mass mobilization and public support in order for the regents to listen to us. And we need to show that to admin, specifically the chancellor, because the chancellor is the only person that has any speaking authority towards the regents. And also, we have started on this campus, on UCSC, this spring, we have launched a new coalition campaign called UC Divest. And UC Divest is a coalition of numerous organizations on campus that are all rooted in anti-imperialism and anti-militarism to divest from war profiteering. The University of California is sadly, tragically, intimately involved with war profiteering, aka literally making money off people dying, literally making money off of weapons manufacturing. The UC is very intimately involved with that. And so the coalition, Mauna Kea Protectors is a part of this coalition, along with other student orgs such as Students for Justice in Palestine, Anak Bayan, Gabriella, WISC, which is the Workers Student Solidarity Coalition, and yeah, all this. We are having an event and a rally soon. We are going to have a May Day rally. May Day is International Workers' Day, and so all of our orgs are very worker-oriented and very people-oriented. And so we're going to have a rally because we need, there's a lot of frustration on this campus. Students are really frustrated that they have been, and faculty and graduate students are really frustrated with the bad treatment that we have been getting for years. And we want to mobilize that anger and that frustration towards something productive, divestment. And so we're going to have a rally, and there's going to be speeches and information. If you would want to get knowledgeable, if you want to get involved, that's a great way to start and be in community. It'll be really fun. We're having a rally on May 1st, is May Day, at Kerr Hall. We're going to be meeting at 12 and rallying at 1 at Kerr Hall. And I would really love to see all you who are listening there. And then also, if you come to the rally, you will hear this, but in case you don't, we're also going to be having an education and orientation on UC Divest, the intricacies of our movement and coalition and demands, and the specific ways that the UC is involved with war profiteering. AKA, I mean, obviously the United States does hella war profiteering, but a public university system should not be involved with that. And the money that is for a public university system should not be going towards war profiteering efforts. And so if you want to learn how and why and the ways that we are gonna mobilize against the UC, I would love to invite you to that as well. That's going to be on May 6th, Saturday. And there'll be more information soon. But yeah, there's numerous ways to get involved. And we would love to have you involved in any way and form and stage. If you don't feel like you're the type, if you are kind of shy or introverted or even nervous, I assure you that your support means a lot, and that is enough, honestly. And if you want to get involved, but you don't think that you don't think that you're like an organizer, or you don't think that you know enough, I promise you, you do have a place within the movement. Everyone has a place within the movement, even if it's something small or something big. If you really want to get involved, then we also totally invite that. So regardless of who you are, what you study, we invite you to come learn and to come get involved in whatever capacity you can. So yeah, I'd love to see you guys on May Day. And also, our Instagram for Mauna Kea Protectors is UCSC Mauna Kea Protectors.
Yeah, we'll link that.
And yeah, we like have our events and we have our meetings, and like there's a lot of information, just like for more information on the issue. There's a lot there.
Yeah. I really like that you're encouraging everyone to join. And I know we talked about this before, like, you guys aren't looking for someone who knows everything about the movement.
No.
You're just looking for people who care,
Yes.
who are willing to learn more.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, if anyone's intimidated to go to the meeting, it's like, there's no reason.
There's not. I swear to God, we're all nice. Like, it's
Yeah.
truly like we need and want the student support. And I think that also the students need the community. I think Santa Cruz really needs the community that these movements can provide. And so I think it's also so beautiful because we can all gain love and community and respect and reciprocity. And these are skills that we must learn and that we might as well start getting good at now.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me, Izzy. I feel like I've learned so much, and what you're sharing is like truly, really, really important. Yeah.
Thank you, Githika. Good job doing your first podcast alone. I'm so honestly, thank you so much for having me and for inviting me. I'm really excited that we're having this, outreach. And I'm super excited to see how this podcast comes out. You did I loved your questions. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to really get into the nitty gritty, because it is quite a, multifaceted issue, and it's been going on for such a long time, so there's a lot to go into. And so, yeah, I really appreciate the invitation.
Of course. And thank you to the audience for listening. We will be linking a YouTube documentary. As I mentioned, we'll also be linking the Mauna Kea Instagram and just other resources for anyone who's curious to learn more about the movement.